Vietnam's top leader Nguyen suddenly passed away. On July 19th, Vietnam officially announced his death. The response from the CCP was swift. The next day, Xi Jinping led a high-ranking delegation to the Vietnamese embassy in Beijing for condolences. The scale was grand, with all 7 Politburo Standing Committee members attending, along with the Secretary of Central Secretariat and the Vice Chairman of the Central Military Commission. Even Fidel Castro didn't receive such a reception. Upon arrival, the red carpet was laid out, wreaths were lined up, and red candles were lit, making it look more like a festive celebration than a condolence ceremony. Although Vietnam is part of the socialist camp, its history is influenced by Confucian culture, which emphasizes a period of mourning after death. But there was no such buffer time for Nguyen Phu Trọng. The CCP's delegation rushed to offer condolences immediately after his passing. During Xi Jinping's visit to Vietnam last year, he brought along Minister of Public Security Wang Xiaohong and Minister of International Department Liu Jianchao with a clear message that disobedience could lead to subversion. Nguyen Phu Trọng did not acknowledge Xi Jinping's toast at the time. He passed away within a year. The condolence ceremony resembled a grand celebration, with Xi Jinping delivering a speech full of praise for Nguyen Phu Trọng, subtly suggesting that the Vietnamese Communist Party should obediently follow the CCP. Even when Kim Il-sung died, the CCP did not go to such lengths. This condolence event saw participation from the International Department, Ministry of Foreign Affairs, and Ministry of Defense, signaling a display of dominance. Shortly after Biden's visit to Vietnam, To Lâm, then Minister of Public Security of Vietnam, hurried to Beijing to meet with Liu Jianchao, Minister of International Department. In December, Xi Jinping visited Vietnam, and by January, 2 pro-American deputy prime ministers were removed from their positions. By May, To Lâm had smoothly become the president of Vietnam. This strategic move was well calculated. Even the Beijing Municipal Committee and municipal government joined in the condolence ceremony. What's the motive behind this? Clearly, it's a message to the Vietnamese officials who own properties and have children studying in Beijing. Rest assured, your interests will be well protected. There are pro-Russian, pro-American, and pro-Chinese factions within the Vietnamese Communist Party, VCP. Xi Jinping's prominent presence at Nguyen Phu Trọng condolence ceremony was a clear message to the pro-Chinese faction within the VCP. See what happened to Nguyen Phu Trọng. Don't follow his path. The attendance of the International Department, Ministry of Foreign Affairs, and the Ministry of Defense at the ceremony was meant to reassure the pro-CCP faction that these departments are there to back them up in Vietnam. In any country, those who control the military control intelligence, and those who control intelligence can dominate the political situation. Currently, Russia, North Korea, and Iran's intelligence systems are all in cahoots with the CCP. If Vietnam were to hand over its military intelligence agencies to the CCP, it would be a major headache for the United States. Before the fall of the Saigon government, its intelligence agencies were deeply intertwined with the U.S., much like Ukraine's current situation. The descendants of these officials are now in the U.S. If the CCP were to exploit this, it would be catastrophic. The CCP's condolence arrangement for Nguyen Phu Trọng was more elaborate than a third plenary session. The video alone was 4 minutes and 20 seconds long, featuring carefully designed wreaths, elegiac couplets, and various materials, all meticulously planned in advance. The CCP is known for its attention to detail, and this event was no exception. Every aspect, from seating arrangements to camera shots, was prearranged. Even the color of the carpet, the banners, and the wording of the elegiac couplets were predetermined. The script was likely long in the making, ready to be enacted the moment Nguyen Phu Trọng passed away. Beyond the political maneuvers in Vietnam, let's discuss why the CCP is so focused on Vietnam. To the east of the South China Sea lies the Philippines, firmly under American influence. If Vietnam were to align with the US and create trouble on the western side of the South China Sea, it would be a major nuisance for the CCP. Thus, the CCP must maintain firm control over Vietnam. Recently, China and Russia conducted military exercises in the Gulf of Tonkin near Vietnam, clearly flexing their muscles at the US. The CCP's grand condolence visit following Nguyen Phu Chang's sudden death was not merely about mourning. It was about bolstering To Lam and the pro-Chinese faction while sending a message to the US that Vietnam is CCP territory. Beyond its strategic importance in the South China Sea, Vietnam is also a key target for the US in shifting supply chains away from China. Last year, Vietnam attracted a staggering $50 billion in foreign investment, with major corporations like Samsung and Apple establishing factories there. This shift is a significant blow to China, as these orders originally belonged to it but have now been taken by Vietnam. Naturally, the CCP is anxious. Disrupting Vietnam and causing these investments to fail has become an urgent priority for the CCP. If Vietnam falls into chaos and social instability, will Western companies still dare to move their production lines there? If that happens, wouldn't the orders return to China? At age 68, To Lam has garnered the CCP's attention and support primarily due to his background and exceptional abilities in Vietnam's public security system. The military and police systems are organizations that highly value discipline and possess substantial power and resources. These systems have immense leverage. Once a key figure is secured, they can wield significant authority to accomplish major tasks quickly and efficiently without the need to build additional connections. For those who are incooperative, the police can arrest them, conduct surveillance, gather incriminating information, and more. As Minister of Public Security, To Lam immediately went to Beijing after Biden's visit to meet with top CCP officials, including Cai Qi, Xi Jinping's favorite official, Liu Jianchao of the International Department, Wang Xiaohong, Minister of Public Security, and Chen Wenqing, Secretary of the Central Political and Legal Affairs Commission. When Xi Jinping visited Vietnam, Cai Qi was followed closely by Liu Jianchao, indicating the deep involvement of the International Department in Vietnam's affairs. It's not an exaggeration to say that To Lam, with the CCP's backing, rose to power following Nguyen Phu Chang's death. But within the Vietnamese Communist Party, To Lam still needs to appease various factions and solidify his position, so he must appear tough in foreign relations. On July 17th, Vietnam submitted a South China Sea delineation plan to the United Nations, openly challenging the CCP's territorial claims. The CCP is both furious and frustrated, but what can they do? To Lam's ambitions are evident from his choice of countries for his first visits. He views the Indochina Peninsula as his strategic priority. Upon becoming the president, he promptly visited Laos and Cambodia, engaging with both neighbors. This move somewhat conflicts with the CCP's interests. It's important to note that China has significant initiatives in the Indochina Peninsula, including constructing the China-Laos Railway and engaging in economic cooperation with Cambodia to expand its influence in the region. Being a landlocked country, Laos relies on access to the sea for economic growth. China built the China-Laos Railway, allowing Laos to access the sea through Thailand. But To Lam is no pushover. He brought along the governor of Quang province in Vietnam, which is the closest route to the sea for Laos. To Lam proposed to Laos that if they cooperate with Vietnam, they would build a road straight to Quang province, providing Laos with an alternative sea access route. This way, Laos wouldn't be solely dependent on the China-Laos Railway and could maintain good relations with both China and Vietnam. In Cambodia, China is promoting the construction of the China-Cambodia International Canal, which, once completed, will significantly shorten the route from China to the Indian Ocean. This canal holds great strategic importance for China and reduces the allure of the Mekong River estuary, which benefits Cambodia. Upon his visit to Cambodia, To Lam proposed to drastically lower the transit fees for the Mekong River. With reduced transit fees, Cambodia might lose interest in collaborating with China on the canal project. So, these seemingly casual proposals by Tholam actually carry significant strategic intent. On the surface, they appear as economic cooperation, but in reality, they are geopolitical maneuvers. His goal is to use these methods to bring Laos and Cambodia to Vietnam's side. This isn't hard to understand. If Vietnam wants to be a regional power, it can't rely solely on its own territory. Expanding its sphere of influence and courting neighboring small countries is a must for any ambitious politician. When the French colonizers came, they managed Vietnam, Laos, and Cambodia as a unified entity. Later, when the Americans left, Vietnam stepped in for the Soviet Union, fighting in Laos and Cambodia. So, controlling the Indochina Peninsula has always been a long-standing aspiration for Vietnam. But will the CCP agree to this? Definitely not. The CCP's strategic goal in this region is to keep Laos and Cambodia firmly within its control, making them its backyard. Now, with Tholam stirring things up, it's akin to competing directly with the CCP for influence. Meanwhile, the Americans are no passive players. They have been diligently working to draw Vietnam into their fold, preventing it from falling into the CCP's grasp. Last September, the U.S. announced plans to sell 40 F-16 fighter jets to Vietnam. If this deal goes through, it would be a milestone for U.S.-Vietnam military cooperation. Currently, Vietnam's Air Force primarily uses Russian-made Su-27 and Su-30 fighters. Switching to American-made F-16s would mean adopting American operational modes, logistics support, and personnel training standards. Essentially, it would bring Vietnam's Air Force under American influence. Behind this arms deal, there is undoubtedly the involvement of U.S. intelligence agencies. They must have their operatives within the Vietnamese military, otherwise such a significant arms deal wouldn't be possible. If some Vietnamese military leaders were bought by the U.S., they could influence Vietnam's military decisions. In such a scenario, if the CCP wanted to make any actions in the South China Sea, it would have to first consider the U.S. stance. This essentially means that the U.S. would have a firm grip on the South China Sea situation. It's not just about arms sales. The Americans are supporting Vietnam in upgrading its industrial chain and helping establish high-tech industrial parks aiming to reduce Vietnam's dependence on Chinese manufacturing. Think about it. There are so many multinational companies that are setting up factories in Vietnam. If Vietnam upgrades its industry, these companies will produce high-end products directly in Vietnam, so why would they still need to buy from China? In recent years, U.S. naval ships have frequently visited Vietnamese ports. Last October, the destroyer USS Mason visited Da Nang. This April, the U.S. and Vietnam held a joint freedom of navigation exercise in the South China Sea. This was unimaginable in the past, as Vietnam, a socialist country and former enemy of the U.S., is now conducting joint military exercises with them. On July 9th, the amphibious command ship USS Blue Ridge and the Coast Guard cutter USCGC Valiant from the U.S. 7th Fleet visited Cam Ranh Bay for 5 days. The Blue Ridge is notable as the flagship of the U.S. 7th Fleet, responsible for command and communication in the Indo-Pacific region. It participated in the 1972 bombing of North Vietnam and the 1975 evacuation of U.S. forces from Vietnam, making it an old acquaintance of Vietnam. The Valiant represents the U.S. Coast Guard's role in handling maritime disputes, indicating that the U.S. is willing to support Vietnam both militarily and in maritime legal matters. Vietnam is well aware that it cannot put all its eggs in one basket regarding the South China Sea issue. Therefore, outwardly, they continue to expose the CCP. Last December, Vietnam's state-owned oil company conducted exploration in the Spratly Islands, which was obstructed by Chinese Coast Guard ships, nearly causing an incident. This July, Vietnam's Ministry of Foreign Affairs openly criticized China's illegal military exercises in the Spratlys, stating they, quote, violated Vietnam's sovereignty. Such strong language is a significant departure from the past when Vietnam would not dare to confront the CCP so boldly. But now, with the backing of the US, they feel emboldened to speak out more freely. Nguyen Phu Trong's death undoubtedly marks a significant turning point in the strategic landscape of Southeast Asia, reflecting the complex power struggles among various forces. The ascent of a new leader will inevitably bring new policy directions. Historical experience shows that strong leaders often face challenges in consolidating power. We can recall historical examples, such as Khrushchev quickly consolidating his position after Stalin's death. Currently, internal discussions in Vietnam about its diplomatic direction have reached a critical juncture. In the coming period, this power struggle is likely to unfold across multiple layers, including the military, public security, intelligence, and party affairs. Various factions are fiercely competing, and whether the new leadership can secure its power and maintain Vietnam's influence in regional affairs are significant questions to watch. Amid the complex geopolitical situation, Vietnam's strategic balance becomes increasingly crucial. On the South China Sea issue, Vietnam needs to balance its relations with all parties. Economically, the importance of the United States as Vietnam's largest export market cannot be overstated. The Vietnamese leadership understands the necessity of seeking balance among major powers. They must continuously adjust their strategies based on the subtle shifts in international dynamics.